If only they could take one of the greatest game consoles of all time and somehow make it smaller. And if only that smaller console had an HDMI hookup so I could reliably capture video footage that would inevitably get hit by YouTube Content ID because the company making it is run by folks who barely understand the internet. And if only that same company also actually managed to produce enough units of this mythical thing so the average person could totally buy one instead of leaving money on the table and only benefiting the bottom line of scalpers. Man, it's nice to want things, I guess. Pizza? That's not pizza. Oh, here we go. Actual Super Nintendo. A Super Nintendo Classic. Let's open this bad boy up and see what we've got here. I am still shocked and surprised that I actually managed to get one of these things. Holy crap. It's here. It's here! Let's unbox it and mess with it for a bit, because man, that's really cool. For the record, this was an 8/25, August 25th order from Walmart.com that actually came through. I also had an August 22nd order, and that one's supposed to go to Rod and Todd, but they haven't shipped it yet. They shipped the 8/25 before they shipped the 8/22, which is insane. What are you doing, Walmart? Don't even know. So here is the unit itself. What? That is really freaking small. That is really freaking small. It's so small. It's so small. Don't you dare talk to me or my son ever again. Power. Power. Reset. Reset. No eject, but there's the eject. I'm not sure that I like having to get your finger under here to get this to pop out. It's like, seems like it's flimsy plastic to get to the actual controller ports, but kind of is what it is. I mean, either you're going to have it on your shelf displaying it, or you're going to have it here open and playing it. So, kind of, you know, it's not that big of a deal, but still, it's not a great design. Now you're playing with Super Power. Also doubles as, hey, here's your instructions. So, 2 features in one with this poster. So you got HDMI, you got your power brick, you got your USB, and of course you have your 2 controllers. This is the new one, and this is an original, very heavily worn, and man, that is pretty much the same mold, the same size, identical. But there's one distinct feature where it's not identical. Let's compare the length. Now, one of the major complaints with the NES Classic was the length of the cable. Not that I ever had one, but I always heard that was a big issue, and here we can see that's how long our SNES Classic cable is, and then the actual SNES just keeps going. And perhaps some folks enjoyed the nostalgia of having to sit closer to the TV. Personally, not an issue in this room because my seat goes here and my TV goes here, so it's not that big of a deal for me, but I can understand why you would want either longer cables or perhaps a wireless, and those are offered in third-party solutions. Now let's hook this little bad boy up so this video can get hit by Content ID. Thanks very much, Nintendo. And so I say, what's good, Internet? My name is Attack Slug, and welcome to the SNES Classic Edition. This thing's itty-bitty, and there's 21 games on it, including the never-before-released Starfox 2. But you gotta play the first stage of Starfox 1 to unlock the gift of Starfox 2. And they picked a bunch of really good games. Not all the good games, and certainly not as many games as the NES Classic had, but they picked a lot of good games. So, I don't know. I'll take a look at some of them here. I will see some of the options here we have for our display. We got 4.3, which is the standard edition of what you should have for a old-ass 4.3 TV video game. I get a lot of folks who complain about my big old CRT TV, but that does this old Super Nintendo very accurately, which is kind of the whole point. You have a CRT filter. I'm not kind of big on filters, but it depends on the game. Some games, they actually look decent, and some games, not so much. And Pixel Perfect, you can blame emulators for that one. That makes it a little bit skinnier to the actual number of pixels, whereas the actual old console would kind of get mapped out a little bit wider on those 4.3 CRT TVs. We have the frames. So if you don't just want a black background, you have a blue frame. You have an 80s whatever frame. You have this bubble frame. You got this thing. You got some mosaic filter. You got some more circles. A nice wood grain. It's not an Atari, but you get that wood grain. And outer space! Some speakers. The Mario 3 curtains are really good. Cityscape, skyscrapers. And I'm gonna go right now with, I don't know, the Mario 3 curtains I think are pretty good. And hop in here. What else we got in options here? This was on, I turned it off. This was on, I turned it off. And I kind of want to finish around Earthbound, but I'm gonna hop in here just here and there in games that you may have heard of, like Mega Man X. That's right, Mega Man, not Mega Ran. Also, check out Mega Ran, but here's some Mega Man. Now, I kind of fell off Mega Man after, like, 4-ish, so X, to me, is a game I never actually played on Super Nintendo. And I'm not super familiar with the X part of the game series of the Mega Man franchise. So, all new to me, and that's pretty cool. Gonna be able to do what I can do here, and what's nice is that, you know, even though I have a Super Nintendo, one would imagine that buying an actual Super Nintendo these days, and buying a copy of, you know, even just one or two of these games, would cost you more than what the actual thing costs you. That's, again, if you can find it. I got lucky, and my pre-order actually shipped, which is not the case for everybody. And even though Reggie insisted, oh, we're gonna make enough, don't buy from scalpers, so far, they did, for day one, get more of them in stores. There definitely was more of a in-store stuff for the Classic. But still, like right now, like, you know, almost a week later, you can't find them. You can't find them. So hopefully, they are true to their word and actually continue to stock these things into the following year. And then supposedly, they're gonna reprint the NES Classic, which I never was able to find, never saw it, never had pre-orders, and that was what got me on my nerves the most. Like, at least have pre-orders, but no, they didn't have pre-orders for it, so what was I gonna do? You know? Accurate slowdown here in the Mega Man, but, you know, it's a Mega Man game, and you shoot things, and you go through stages, and you beat all of the different bosses. So yeah, I don't want to spend too much time on any one game here. This is not like a comprehensive look at every single game on this thing. But, so to change games, you would hit the actual button for reset on the console. And that would give you a save state, and you can put that in your suspend list, much like, say, a virtual console game on the 3DS, I believe. Hit the Y button here, and then 3 minutes of Mega Man can be saved. I can delete it, I can do, you know, whatever I want with it, etc., etc. So, let's look at some, I don't know, Castlevania here for a moment. Oh, Konami. Back when you actually made video games people cared about, instead of now just managing love hotels and pachinko machines and whatnot. I'm sorry, health clubs. And they're making that Metal Gear Survive thing without Kojima, so, you know. S-L-U-G. It's a Belmont, baby. Whip them things. Hell yeah. You can jump on the stairs in this one. You can jump on the stairs in this one. Got that knife. I didn't play a lot of the later, like, anything past NES Castlevanias. So, again, when I was a kid and you wanted to buy games for Super Nintendo, they were like $90. They were expensive. So, as such, I rented a lot of stuff. I went to, you know, Blockbuster Video and rented a lot. But I didn't buy a whole lot of games in this era because they just were expensive. So I was like, you know, I had Mario and I had Zelda and I had Earthbound, obviously. But you know, my actual list of games, I had, you know, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, you know, those kinds of things. And things like Zombies Ate My Neighbors, which is an excellent game, which is not on this list, not in this collection, unfortunately. I'm not sure how it holds up. At the time, I played it a whole lot. And that was the thing. You only had so many games, so you just kept playing what you had over and over again. And thankfully, some of these games are some of the greatest games of all time, and that definitely was to its benefit of being able to play them over and over and over again. And then there's Mario Kart. And they always say your first Mario Kart is usually your favorite Mario Kart. And I don't know how true that is. And I do know I spent a lot of time on this game when I was a kid. With friends, in battle mode, in race mode. We spent a lot of time playing Mario Kart. And we also spent a lot of time on Mario Kart 64. And not so much on, say, like a Double Dash. Whoops, I held the button there. My bad. Not so much on Double Dash, really. It was okay, it was just different. And then, you know, you get old enough and there are other video games and that kind of thing. But I definitely enjoyed this game. Now, these days, the Mode 7 does not quite hold up, because it's Mode 7, you know, in the mid-90s. But at the time, man, this was a revelation. It was like, holy crap, this is so much fun. So much fun. Always important to have 10 coins at your disposal, in your collection, to have that maximum amount of speed that you can possibly get in this game. But it's still a Mario Kart, and if you played any of them, then you kind of know what that is. Obviously, flat tracks, because it was the Super Nintendo, it was the first one. But it's still pretty good. Like, I still spent way too many hours playing it, even if the Versus was only two players. Still spent a lot of hours in those versus modes and whatnot. And DK, you can eat it, yeah! Red, that's my banana. That's my banana. No power slides, no, there's a lot of things that aren't in this game that, you know, got added in future iterations of this whole thing. So, not a game I'm gonna spend a lot of time on, really, but it's alright. Super Mario World. If there's one game that I know the music will get this video flagged by Nintendo for content ID, it's this game. Probably one of, if not the greatest platforming game of all time. Like, it just, if you haven't played it, if you weren't alive when it was out, or it just skipped you by somehow, you definitely should play Super Mario World. It's not even debatable. Just play it. Seriously, just play it. It is that good, and it has influenced so many other video games. Like, indisputably. It just feels so good to play. It just feels so good. I remember when before I had a Super Nintendo, when I only had a Genesis, right? And I was like, man, I need to play this game so bad. This is back when Blockbuster still did video game rentals, right? So we rented a Super Nintendo and rented this game, or I guess it came with it because it was a pack-in for this system. So I spent an entire weekend playing through this game. I barely slept. I must have been like 11, 12, something like that. Basically, you would get into Blockbuster on a Friday, and then you would have it for those 3 days for that weekend. And then you spend all weekend, obviously you don't have school, spend all weekend playing the one game you got with that system, and just going ham on it because you only had it until Sunday night, and then, oh, back to school Monday, and we're not playing it anymore, it's going back to Blockbuster. And this game was just that good. Just that good. So, again, if you haven't played it, if by some weird coincidence you haven't played it, and you don't understand how freaking great this game is, definitely play it. Just 110%. Get this thing, drop whatever else it is you're doing. This is your first game, you haven't played it, play it, because, man, it's really good. This game, like, this mini console, man, it's pretty much almost all bangers. Like, Super Metroid, again. Some would say the pinnacle of the Metroid series, just bar none. And it's a really good Metroid game. It's kind of paved the way for, again, a lot of games that do this same thing. A lot of what they call the Metroidvania style of game. It's Super Metroid is the granddaddy. And while, yes, you can obviously point to the original Metroid as the originator, Super Metroid kind of coalesced it and gelled it in a way that games have been copying for the past, 20 years. The thing, I think, with stuff like this, if you weren't alive for when it was a big thing, or if you weren't, like, if you don't have that nostalgia, I can see why you might just look at it and go, man, these games look super old and whatever, but personally, I firmly believe that when you make a good game, that game is a good game forever. Like, it's never going to go bad. It's never going to be, like, dated. If the game is quality gameplay, and it's fun to play, and it controls well, that game's going to be a good game forever. Obviously there are games on the PS1 that don't look great, because 3D technology has not aged well, and we'll get into Starfox here in a moment, but it has not particularly aged well. I get that. But at the same time, games like this, that have this amazing pixel art, and just play super tight, and are just fun and well made and high quality, it's never going to be passé, it's never going to be old, it's going to be fun. There is a Metroid. But oh wait, there is a surprise in here, and we're going to find out pretty soon what that surprise is. Oh no! It's Ridley, baby! What you gonna do, Ridley, with that Metroid? And then he gets that Mode 7 on your ass. Woo! Emergency. And you got it. And then you must escape immediately. And we're not gonna do that. Now, in terms of graphics that don't quite hold up, but were definitely super impressive at the time, Starfox. Look at that. Look at that Starfox. Like, after you were like polygons on a Super Nintendo? Do a barrel roll. Like, what is even happening? It's crazy. Like, this at the time was kind of nuts. Kind of nuts that you had this on a Super Nintendo. Like, it's got a garbage frame rate. It doesn't, it doesn't really, like, it's okay for what it was at the time. These days, not so much. But, man, at the time, mind-blowing. These days, yeah, it's kind of rough. It's kind of rough. Like, Star Fox 64, I think, holds up way better. But, this was a pioneer at the time. Of all the versions of Street Fighter 2, this one they put on here, which was the Turbo Hyper Fighting edition of Street Fighter 2. And, I'm not like, I just recall there being so many of them, I can't recall what the, what the distinctions are between them. But, it's a Street Fighter, It is hard to go wrong with some good old-fashioned Street Fighter. I'm not good at it, but it's alright. I like Street Fighter. I like it just fine. Certainly more well-received at the time than, say, Street Fighter V was, recently. Anyway, screw you and your cheap-ass throws. I win! Donkey Kong Country, which is a game I think actually would benefit from the CRT filter, because this was, again, mind-blowing for its time, because it was using rendered characters in the game instead of pixels. Instead of polygons, they were rendering the characters with, high-end computers and whatnot. And it just kind of looks kind of mushy these days. Like, it doesn't look great. So I'm going to actually hop out here, turn on the CRT filter, and see how that makes a difference. Oh yeah, that feels more accurate to my nostalgia of what I felt this game looked like back when I played it, when it originally came out back in the mid-90s. So, again, I think this game is pretty good. Like, I know that it certainly has its detractors, but at the time, I just died on the first enemy. I just died on the first enemy. Wow. Wow! At the time, it was a game that I enjoyed playing through and getting, was like 110%, 113%, just doing everything. Because at the time, it felt unlike a lot of what was out there for platforming, and certainly it looked visually really good compared to other games on the SNES. Now, you could also argue that the second one is a better game, but the first one was so groundbreaking at the time that, that has to be the one that you include. Also on here that I'm not going to get into, we have a handful of RPGs. We have Final Fantasy III. We have Super Mario RPG, which also I beat on a rental when I was a kid. And Earthbound is an amazing game, and I will get into a bit. I'm actually going to play about an hour of Earthbound to get to a part that I want to show you guys, and then I'm going to jump cut to that part before wrapping up this video. And for the third time in history, you can legally buy a copy of Earthbound, quite possibly my favorite game of all time. Earthbound is awesome. If you haven't played Earthbound, if you haven't had a chance to play Earthbound, it was only on the Super Nintendo. It was downloadable on the Wii U and the new 3DS. And now it is on the SNES Classic Earthbound. Easily. My favorite RPG, my favorite SNES game, and quite possibly my favorite game, just hands down. So, not going to play too much of this. I played about an hour-ish to get to this point to show you guys one specific thing. And I could certainly sit here and wax philosophical about the virtues, about why Earthbound is so great. Not just the music. It's the wit, it's the charm, it's the weirdness, it's the fourth wall bending. The gameplay is pretty standard Dragon Warrior, Dragon Quest, 16-bit, 8-bit JRPG type stuff. But unlike games from this era that were all fantasy games, that were all high fantasy or whatever, this is set in the modern day, in like modern day cities, and you're this kid saving the world. And it's just so good. I've played it, a bunch of times. It's got stuff that I like in that you didn't see often, where if you are so much more powerful than an enemy, you will immediately win that battle. And enemies that know you're more powerful than they are will just run the hell away. And that, at the time, as someone who wasn't really a fan of the random battle system, that was really cool. This was kind of like, I avoided most RPGs at the time. And then something about how they presented this game in the magazines, I was like, I need to play that. I need to play that. And got my hands on it for, I think it was a birthday present when I was like 14, 15, somewhere around there. And just came in a big old box, had a big old manual, like a thick, player's guide in the box. Because it's just so weird, and it needed that manual to kind of give you a heads up on what in the blue hell this game was. So I've gotten the key here for the first dungeon, and I'm going to use this key here, the key to the shack. Use it. You go to the ATM and withdraw money. This game is, at the time, to me, was mind-blowing. And again, has a really good soundtrack that I'm sure will get this video flagged, but you know what? Fuck YouTube, and fuck Nintendo for that shit. Whatever. But, more important than that, more important than all that, I'm gonna head into this first dungeon and fight the enemies in this first dungeon. And you might wonder, what are the enemies in this first dungeon? Oh, look! Oh, look. It's an attack slug. Yes, this is where I got my name from this video game. Attack Slug A became tame. Attack Slug D is attacking, because that's what they do. They're attack slugs. So that little sprite, I've used that sprite in different video things, different promotional things, literally. I was trying to think of a name when I started doing music that I wanted to do music as, and I was just going through a list of all the weird-ass Earthbound enemy names, and there are a lot of weird-ass Earthbound enemy names, and attack slug seemed like the most interesting one, or the most useful one, and now I'm level 7. Oh, baby! So yeah, the combat is, kind of a standard Dragon Quest, Dragon Warrior type thing. The gameplay is not really why you come to this game. It's everything else. It's the presentation. It's the music. It's the humor. It is 100% worth playing, and if nothing else, one of the cheapest ways to get a hold of this game. Either buying a Wii U and buying this digitally for $10, or buying it, this SNES Classic, if you could find one, for $80 is way cheaper than going onto eBay and spending well over $200 for the original SNES cartridge, which I wouldn't recommend you doing, but it is certainly a thing you can do. What's crazy is that the Super Famicom, the Japanese version of this, doesn't have this game on it. This is considered, a classic and whatnot on this platform, and they didn't have it on that version of the hardware, which was weird. Anyway, whether or not I find the time to play Earthbound for the 15th time in my life, I don't know, but it's really good, and if you haven't played it, you should totally play it. Also, manuals. To look at the manuals get a smart device and scan that barcode and get the manuals. So you can see there on the box it says, hey, big old manual. I don't actually have that. My sister had it. I think she lost it. I'm kind of mad about it because it's worth a lot of money now, but it might be in an attic somewhere. I don't actually know. Anyway, as you can see here, 21 phenomenal SNES games on the SNES Classic, and a lot of gameplay in here. A lot of good quality Legend of Zelda, super high quality. Some of the greatest games of all time are on this thing for $80. That is actually a really good value, considering what they would have charged you on the Virtual Console, or just actually going out and buying the cartridges would cost you. Earthbound alone will cost you more than twice what this thing will cost you. If you can find it at retail, thanks scalpers. But Nintendo said they're making more. They said, okay, we're going to print this well into 2018, so theoretically everyone who wants one should be able to find one, fingers crossed, if they weren't lying about it. Anyway, that's a short look at the SNES Classic. It is out now, if you can find one. I'm Attack Slug. Thanks for watching. More videos every day. And I'll see you next time, right here on this channel. And I'm out.